The NFL season is officially 4 weeks in, and we have a really good idea as to what teams are good and what teams are not. So in today's video, I want to do my updated Week 5 NFL Power Rankings. Subscribe and like the video if you do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. And we are going to begin in last place with the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are 0-4. They have only scored a total of 51 points through 4 weeks, but have given up 120 points. We're only 4 weeks in, and they have a point differential of -69. Nice. This Titans team is just not a good team. Cam Ward, I think, is doing fine for a young rookie quarterback, but he can only do so much. The rest of the team around him has been very disappointing. You look at some of the veterans on this team like Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, Dan Moore Jr., L'Jarius Sneed. Those guys have been all pretty big disappointments this year. There have been some bright spots here and there, but for the most part, this Titans team has just not looked good. I also think they might need a new head coach pretty dang soon. Moving to number 31, I have the New Orleans Saints. Now, the Saints are 0-4, but of the teams that are 0-4, I actually kind of feel like the Saints might be one of the better teams. I don't think they're a bad team by no means, but they're also not a good team. I have a feeling this team, when they get some easier matchups, will win a handful of games because they have been quite competitive through most of their games this year. Hell, in week 4, if Brandon Cooks holds on to that touchdown, they take a lead in the 4th quarter versus the Buffalo Bills, which, spoiler alert, they're going to be way up the board here. So the Saints actually have been quite the competitive team in some of their games, and they have a quarterback that I think is actually playing some decent football in Spencer Rattler. So Kellen Moore's doing a fine job. I think the team is heading in the right direction, but clearly this team is just not a very good team right now. They're rebuilding, they're retooling. Just if you are a Saints fan, please hope that you start to trade off some of these older assets. This team needs to commit to a full rebuild. Moving to number 30, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. Ever since Burrow went down with that injury, I have made sure that this Bengals team is one of the lowest teams in my power rankings. I can't put them in last place because eventually they will get Burrow back. And, well, to their credit, they do have 2 wins on their resume. But these past 2 weeks, with Jake Browning getting the full start, have been utterly abysmal. They cannot score a single point. They cannot move the football. There is no run game. This offensive line straight up is pathetic. They can't get the ball out to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins because teams are selling out against them. If you can't get the ball to your playmakers, they have nothing. And defensively speaking, yes, you have Trey Hendrickson, and maybe they took a small step forward from last year, but this is still a pathetic defense. Both sides of the football absolutely stink. Zach Taylor sucks to head coach. This team, in my opinion, should tank the rest of the year. I know the vibes are going to be bad heading into the offseason, but let Burrow rest, let him get healthy, tank for a top pick, and then address some of your bigger needs on your team, both offensive line and defense. This team is just not good without their starting quarterback. Moving to number 29, I have the New York Jets. The New York Jets have been quite a frustrating team because they have shown some life on the offensive end, but this defense is just not good enough. In week 1, the offense had some life, but the defense gave up like 1 billion points to Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then in week 2, you had an absolute stinker versus the Buffalo Bills. Tyrod Taylor comes in for a little bit, and in this past week, in week 4, you lost to the Miami Dolphins, a game that really was not that close. The Dolphins handled business throughout most of the day. This Jets team is just not good. You have a handful of bright spots here and there. Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, both the Williams, a handful of good guys, but then surrounding those great players or good players is like nothing. Their second corner is bad. Their weapons next to Garrett Wilson are just not good. The quarterback play is not good enough. The running back play is quite inconsistent too because they don't really have that lead back. This is just a Jets team that I do think is heading in the right direction because Aaron Glenn, I do believe, is a good coach. He just has to, get some pieces to work with. I think this team is heading in the right direction, but they're still going to end up having probably a top 5 pick, which is probably a good thing because this team needs a quarterback. Again, at number 28, the Carolina Panthers. I don't know how to feel about this team because in week 1, it was an ugly game. In week 2, it got better late in the game, but still for the most part pretty ugly. Week 3, beautiful game, 30-0. The defense played great. The offense was efficient. And then last week, man, just the complete opposite. Yet again, just abysmal play. And you got to have the conversation about both Bryce Young and Dave Canales. Now, in the defense of Bryce Young, I don't think Bryce is the reason why this team is losing, but he's also not playing good enough to keep this team in games. Sometimes you can have an abysmal team with a good quarterback that can at least keep you in games. Look at, for example, Joe Burrow, who can keep his team in games even though they might not win them. Burrow is good enough to get his team to competitive matchups. Not saying I need Bryce to play like Burrow, but can he play better than what he has? I just feel like he hasn't really taken a step forward. I don't think he's playing bad football by no means, but he hasn't taken that step forward that we all want him to do. I'm not giving up on Bryce. I still think Bryce has potential, and I think, honestly, a good change of scenery might not be the worst case for Bryce Young. I don't know what team would trade for him, but if I was a team that needed a quarterback, I might consider trading for Bryce Young right now. And then there's the Dave Canales conversation, which is also very interesting. I feel like this Panthers defense has taken a small step forward, but they're still very inconsistent. All in all, just the vibes are low in Carolina. I don't know what the silver lining is for this team. I don't know what the future looks like. They're a confusing mess right now. Moving to number 27, I have the Miami Dolphins. Congrats to the Miami Dolphins. You got a good win versus the New York Jets, but Tyreek Hill broke his leg or dislocated his knee or something crazy. Don't watch it. It's really bad. I was recording my podcast and it happened live, and I was fumbling for words after. Don't watch it. It's scary stuff, but hopefully Tyreek does get better and can come back some point next year, but he probably will be on a different team. The vibes are still low in Miami. Yes, you get the win versus the Jets. Yes, you feel good about it. That Jets team is one of the worst teams in the NFL, and you beat them handily. I do think this Dolphins team has the potential to turn their season a bit around because their schedule does ease up a little bit, but I'm still very cautious on this team. Even if they do pull off some wins versus some of these easier matchups, I think they have like Panthers in a few weeks or something along those lines. Their schedule does ease up, but I just don't really know if I believe in this team. They have a long way to go. They're not even close to where they need to be at. I still think they need to reset the entire roster. This Dolphins team is not good, hence why they are where they are. Moving to number 26, I have the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are one of the few teams in the NFL that has a sub 500 record that I actually don't feel too bad about. They're 1-3, but man, they have been really competitive in almost every single game, and their schedule so far has been absolutely brutal. By the way, it doesn't get too much better. Their schedule is pretty difficult the entire way, but at the bare minimum, you know, there are some silver linings here. The defense is playing great. Quinshon Judkins has looked good. It just feels like this team has to reset the entire offense here. A new quarterback, a new offensive line, some new weapons on the outside. They're probably 4 or 5 good offensive pieces away from being a good team because this defense is actually really good. But if they have an offseason where they directly address this offense with the new quarterback, with a bunch of new pieces here and there, I think the Browns could be a team that we look at next year and say they might make the playoffs, because they're not going to make the playoffs this year. Flacco, Gabriel, Shador, none of those guys are the answer in my opinion. Granted, I do think eventually you got to throw Dylan Gabriel in there to see if he can go. But then after this year, assuming Gabriel or Shador don't blow us away, I think you do a full reset of the offense and just build off of what you have on the defensive side of things. I can see this Browns team turning around pretty quickly, but as of when it comes to this year, they're just not a good offense. Defensively, they're good. Offensively, they absolutely stink. Number 25, I have the New York Giants. And what a change of momentum here for this New York Giants team. The first 3 weeks were quite disappointing. Even though you had a high versus Dallas, the other 2 games were just so disappointing. You throw in a new quarterback in Jackson Dart, who I thought played okay. I didn't think he did anything special out there, but just him being out there just brought this new wave of energy to both sides of the field. I thought the defensive line dominated that Chargers offensive line. Granted, no Slater, no Alt for most of the game, so, you know, give him some slack, but I thought the defensive line for the Giants dominated in that game. I thought the secondary held up nicely. I think the offense has a little bit more juice now. No Neighbors, hence why they're still quite low in my rankings here. Had they had Neighbors with Scatabo and Dart and that rushing ability, you also just throw that Dart might just be a better player than Russell Wilson right now, and you add in Malik Neighbors, I probably would have had them up a few more spots. You take out Malik Neighbors, I worry about the passing game, especially with the young quarterback. I think they're going to be a very competitive team the rest of the way. They got some juice to them. They got some energy. I think 2026 and 2027 could be quite exciting for Giants fans. But this year, it's a tough schedule. It's just going to be quite difficult for them to really mount any sort of success this year. Number 24, I got the Las Vegas Raiders. The good news for the Raiders is that they got Ashton Genty going, which is by far the best thing that could have happened last week. Still, though, they're 1-3. The defense is not good, and the offense just hasn't put it together yet. A ton of turnovers from Geno Smith. He has to clean that up. He's just playing too much hero ball right now. With Genti getting going, hopefully this run game can be what it needs to be to have an offense where it's not just one-dimensional, where you have multiple dimensions to it. If they can get that ground game going, then I have a bit more faith in this Raiders team moving forward. But if this was just a one-off versus a bad Bears defense, then obviously this team is just not going to be very good. I don't think the Raiders are making the playoffs, but I could see them pulling off a couple victories down the road here. I think they're better than what their record indicates, but not like that much better or anything like that. Moving to number 23, I have the Houston Texans. Now, hopefully week 4 was a get-right game for the Texans because they did get a big victory versus the Tennessee Titans, but, and I hate that I have to say this, the offense scored 6 points through 3 quarters. Had Joey Slye made his field goals, it's a 6-6 ball game heading to the 4th quarter. So I can't get that out of my memory. That was just, it wasn't an impressive victory to me. But there was some signs of life offensively. They got Higgins going. They got Woody Marks going. If they can get these young players more involved, maybe it could make this offense better. I'm still very not impressed by this offense, but I am very impressed with this defense. This defense is incredibly good. They can get after the quarterback. They can create turnovers. They have a great defensive identity. They just need the offense to get to a point where they're just average or even slightly below average. Right now, this offense just is terrible. If they can get the offense going a little bit, then I do think the Texans will be a fine football team. But until they can get this offense going, they got to be quite low on my rankings. So we'll see if this game was a bouncing off point where they can finally get this offense in a rhythm. Moving to number 22, I have the New England Patriots. Man, the New England Patriots this year just reek of 8-9, 9-8, which is an awesome thing for this team. I know everyone wants to jump the gun and say, oh, the Patriots are going to make the playoffs. Let's chill out for a little bit. They might with how bad the AFC is looking, but I don't think they will. This team is just going to be around that 500 mark, which I think is awesome for this team. It's a great indicator as to where you are as a team with Mike Vrabel, Drake May, and all these guys. I think every Patriots fan has to be quite satisfied with what they've seen so far this year. Their victories have been maybe not the most impressive victories, and their losses may not be the most impressive losses, but they've been competitive. They've stayed in these games. Drake May has taken a bit of a step forward. You just are missing a few pieces here and there on the offensive line, some guys defensively, but you have the assets moving forward to really make some upgrades. So if I'm a Patriots fan, I'm feeling pretty good with where we're at. We're going to be probably around a 500 team this year, and then next year we might be a team that can get to that double-digit win mark if we are aggressive in free agency like we were this past year. So keep an eye on this Patriots team, man. I think they're going to be quite a competitive team this year. Their schedule is super easy, so they're going to win a handful of games. I think the jumping off point, though, is going to be the end of the year as they go into next season where they can really take a big bounce forward and potentially become a playoff caliber team, especially if Drake May continues to develop. Moving to number 21, I have the Dallas Cowboys. That game versus the Packers was absolute cinema. What a fun game versus a really good Packers team. I think this Cowboys team is actually quite good. It just comes down to the fact that I don't think this team can be competitive with most teams out there because of how bad this defense is. The second they go up against a roster that has a good offense or even a slightly above average or to even an average offense, the defense can't stop nothing. We saw the Chicago Bears score 31 points against them and made them look like Swiss cheese. We saw the Packers score 40 on them. We saw Russell Wilson, I think, drop 40 on them too. This Cowboys defense is not good, and unfortunately, I don't think they have too many answers now. Now, they will get DeMarvion Overshown back at some point, which I think does improve the defense, but they got other major issues. They don't have a pass rush right now. They don't have a corner who can lock down. Bland is fine, but the other guys, Kyer Elam and Trevon Diggs, stink right now. The safeties are abysmal, and they got a defensive coordinator that is playing some super safe football right now, and unfortunately, that safe football is costing them a ton of big plays down the field. The offense is playing great. George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver duo in the league. And you got a quarterback playing at, in my opinion, an MVP level. Javonte Williams looks good. I even think Brian Schottenheimer is doing a whale of a job. But the defense stinks, and that's going to hold them back, unfortunately. If the defense was average, this Cowboys team would probably be in my top 15. But because of how bad this defense is, they are where they are. Moving to number 20, I have the Chicago Bears. I thought their Week 4 game was not the most impressive thing in the world, but a win is a win. And it was yet again going up against an opponent that is not terrible by no means. The game against the Dallas Cowboys was quite impressive on the offensive end. Defensively, it left a little bit to be desired, but still, it was a much better performance in Week 3 than it was in Week 2. And it kind of was the same story in week 4 where the defense made enough plays, and that's what this team is going to be relying on. They need their defense to be just above slightly average, around that 17 to 21 best in the NFL range. And with this offense taking steps forward, this is going to be a Bears team that nobody wants to face. They got a creative offense. They got a quarterback that's kind of in a rhythm right now. They have their wide receiver 1 in Odunze. The running game needs to get going, and I do think that's probably going to be something they address this upcoming season or offseason with potentially a Jeremiah Love or, one of those guys in the draft. They're definitely probably going to target somebody in the draft, but they got some pieces going there on the offensive end. And defensively, I think they're playing better football than what they did in weeks 1 and 2. We'll see if they can keep it up as they go through the rest of their schedule. I look at this team and I think, man, 8 or 9 wins is pretty possible for this team. Moving to number 19, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jaguars are 3-1, and admittedly speaking, I want to move them up a little bit higher. I just have not been able to fully buy into this Jaguars team. I can buy into this defense. This defense is playing some really good football right now. They're well coached. The corners are playing well. They got answers. They got variety. I like what this defense is doing. It's just that I can't fully buy into this offense because they're so inefficient and they make a bunch of boneheaded plays. Now, they have playmakers that can definitely do some big things. Travis, BTJ, ETN, but they're all pretty inconsistent. BTJ has been a massive disappointment this year, and in some ways, I think Travis Hunter has also been quite disappointing too. Trevor, in and out of himself, is just not playing the cleanest of football. But the biggest thing here, they're winning games. Defensively, they're playing really well, and offensively, they're making enough plays to win games. And when you look at their division, it's not the hardest division in the world. I do think the Colts are playing great football, and we'll talk about them way up the board. But I think Jacksonville, if they can just take care of business versus the bad teams and upset a few teams, keep an eye on this Jaguars team. They might be a team that sneaks into that wild card spot. And if they keep winning, they're going to continue to rise up my board. Moving to number 18, I have the Atlanta Falcons. This was a great response in week 4. In week 3, just a complete embarrassment of everybody on the team, the coaching staff, the quarterback. It was embarrassing, but in week 4, they responded. And I was really happy with what I saw in this game. They finally started to open up the playbook a bit more for Penix, getting the ball down the field. And I keep repeating this, and I'll repeat it here. They finally got the football to London, to Pitts, to Bijan. Spending those first-round picks on those talents means that they should get more opportunities. And so far in their young careers, it hasn't really been the case except for last week. And I hope they build off of this where they primarily are targeting their top-tier talents. Pitts, London. I mean, Bijan's been involved all year long, but getting him more opportunities. They're starting to do that. They're starting to open up the playbook a little bit. The defense is playing fine football as well. So yeah, I felt after week 3, it was an all-time low for them. I feel like in week 4, if we can get more of that team moving forward, this team's going to win a handful of games. Unfortunately, I do look at this team and I see 9-win team, maybe 10 wins if things go well, which is not really where this team wants to be. Could they make the wild card? Maybe. Right now, I'd probably say it's unlikely, though it can happen. It definitely could. Moving to number 17, I have the Arizona Cardinals. Now, if you want to flip the Cardinals and the Falcons, I don't have a big issue with it. I did go with the Cardinals because they got Marvin Harrison Jr. going and got him the football, and that did quite excite me a little bit more. Penix is a young quarterback that I just don't know, what the volatility of him is going to look like. I know what I'm getting from Kyler Murray, and yes, he's inconsistent as hell, but when he's going, he's playing good football. So this Cardinals team has a lot of things going against them, but if they can get that Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. connection fully unlocked, then I think this offense can take a bit of a step forward. Trey Benson's now their RB1. We'll see if he can, dominate the carries and play well. Defensively, they've taken a step forward. Calais Campbell is still an absolute nightmare up the middle, despite being, 39 years old. This defense is playing decent football. The offense just has to get that Marvin Kyler connection, as well as get McBride going and see if they can open up some running lanes for Trey Benson. If they can get that stuff going, I am a bit more bullish on this Cardinals team than I would be on the Falcons, hence why they're in front of them. But again, you could flip them either way, and I don't really disagree with you. Moving to number 16, we have the Minnesota Vikings. This Vikings team they're a tough cookie to crack, man. I don't really know how to feel about this team because you look at the personnel on this depth chart and you say, wow, they got some talented pieces, but then you look at their record, they're 2-2, and then you look at the quarterback question, and it's a major question right now. They have pieces, and they're getting a bit more healthy on the offensive line. Hopefully, they can start to play better football because they have not played well so far this year. But if they can get this line going, especially offensively, and if they can get this interior defensive line to play some better football, Kenneth Gainwell killed them in week 4. Let's see if they can pick it back up. But I just think they have the pieces to be a really good team. Just kind of comes down to, I don't know what I'm getting from their quarterback right now. JJ McCarthy, Carson Wentz, which one's the starter moving forward, and which one's the better option right now? I honestly don't think either one's a great option. Now, I want to see JJ get more opportunities. He's only played 2 games. It was not very pretty for most of the games. He had a good run in the 4th quarter versus Chicago. Let's see if this little bit of time off benefits him moving forward, and let's see if we can get him back sometime, hopefully before or after their bye week. But yeah, this is a weird spot for the Vikings. I think they're a very talented team that I think could put it together later in the season. But as of right now, they're just, again, they're a tough cookie to crack. I don't know where they should be, to be honest with you. Moving to number 15, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, if the Steelers keep winning games, I'm going to have to continue to move them up my board. But admittedly speaking, I can't buy into this Steelers team quite yet. And there's a variety of reasons. Number one, don't buy this offense one bit. Yes, they got going versus Minnesota, and that was quite impressive, but I don't know if it's sustainable. I don't trust their offensive line, especially those 2 tackles. I can't trust their quarterback. I don't trust their weapons next to DK Metcalf, and I don't know what I'm getting from a running back every single snap. Now, defensively, they can create turnovers. TJ Watt's still a great player. Jalen Ramsey's a great player. They got pieces to work with there. So if this defense can start to get their stride going, play great lockdown football, and give their offense opportunities because of turnovers, they're going to win games. And the Steelers' schedule is not the hardest schedule in the world. So I do think Pittsburgh could make the playoffs. And as of right now, they're by far the favorites to win this division, barring Baltimore miraculously making a comeback here. But yeah, I think Pittsburgh has a great chance to be a good team this year. They're just a weird one. I don't buy into them too much. I do think they can make the playoffs, but I have a hard time seeing them make a playoff run. Moving to number 14, I got the San Francisco 49ers. Man, it's unfortunate what this Niners team is going through. The amount of injuries they have is just killer, man. I mean, it's just killer. They had all these injuries coming into the season. Now you have Nick Bosa out for the season. We don't know when Ayuk is going to come back. Kittle's still on IR. Purdy's probably not 100%, but still, they're 3-1, and they got a pretty cupcake schedule. So this Niners team is going to win a lot of games, maybe win the division, or at least come second or third and probably end up in a wild card spot. They're a well-coached team. They're going to win a handful of games. Injuries they've just massacred this team, and it's really unfortunate. Moving to number 13, I got the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, this one's tough. If you criticize me for having them this high, I don't blame you. They're 1-3. But you look at their losses, they probably should have beat the Bills in week 1. You had a close loss to the Detroit Lions, and then Lamar Jackson gets hurt in week 4 in a game that was just not pretty on all ends. They've lost to 3 really good teams, and honestly, they probably should have won at least one of them. So that's kind of my logic, and it's just, man, they were my number 1 team in the preseason. I'm pretty sure I picked them on my podcast to win the Super Bowl this year, or make the Super Bowl, or at least come close to making it. But man, they've been disappointing. So in some ways, I guess there is some preseason bias going on here, but I'm worried about this team because their schedule these next few weeks is not easy. Granted, it does ease up down the stretch of the season. So if they can just get Cooper Rush to hold the fort down, I think their bye week is in 3 weeks, I want to say. So if they can just get a win here and there and then get Lamar back and this defense takes a step forward, I think it's possible. But for a team that I thought was going to be a lock to make the playoffs and a lock to make a deep playoff run, I'm cautious on this team, man. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs this year, and that is sad to say. So they're at 13 now, but when Cooper Rush steps in next week, assuming Lamar is out with the hamstring injury, they're probably going to fall way down my power rankings. So stay tuned next week. We'll see where this Ravens team will be at. Moving to number 12, I got the Denver Broncos. Now, the Broncos took care of business versus Cincinnati in week 4. If the Bengals were healthy, that would be an impressive win, but the Broncos beat up on Jake Browning, so not the most impressive win. Regardless, though, a win is a win, and defensively, they looked dominant in that game. Granted, I could look dominant coaching that defense against this offense. So yeah, they're a tough one to crack because they probably should have beat the Colts as well. So they really should be 3-1. And they're doing this without a quarterback that's just not playing great football right now. Bo Nix, I thought he took a step forward in week 4. Granted, bad defense. Let's see if they can build off of this. They clearly got a great offensive line. They clearly have some weapons on the outside. They clearly have a great defense. They just got to get Bo going. And I think once they do get Bo Nix going 100% and playing good football, I have a feeling this Broncos team is going to start to get things rolling. They're 2-2 now, but I do think they are going to get their act together and start playing better football. I still think this division is 100% open, with Denver only being a game behind this Chargers team. Well, I guess 2 games because they lost to them. Only being a handful of games behind them with all the Chargers injuries. Don't count out the Broncos yet. I do think they have a chance to make a deep run to potentially make the playoffs this year. I think they're a good team. Moving to number 11, the Washington Commanders. This is another one of those teams that I don't really know how I feel about them because we really haven't gotten a chance to see this team in full action. We got them in weeks 1 and 2 with Daniels. You had an ugly win versus the Giants, but a win's a win. And then in week 2, an ugly loss to the Packers, and we haven't seen Daniels since. So they're a tough one to crack. I have my concerns for this Commanders team, but when Daniels does come back, I think that's when we can really judge this team. I have concerns in the secondary because I don't know what they have there right now. I have concerns right now with the overall health of this team. They're just dealing with a ton of injuries right now. But again, they're just one of those teams that's like, I can't judge them right now because we haven't seen them fully healthy, honestly, most of the season so far. So until we get a bigger sample size, I can't quite judge them yet. For now, I still have faith in Jaden Daniels. I still have faith in Dan Quinn. I think this defense can play good enough because that's what they've done so far this year. So we'll see. I think once they go up against a team like Philadelphia or one of these top upper echelon teams, I think we'll figure out a lot about this team, and we can kind of judge if that week 2 game was just a bit of a fluke. So we'll wait and see. Right now, it's hard to judge, but they're at my number 11 spot. Moving to inside our top 10, we have the Seattle Seahawks. Man, the Seahawks are playing good football. They are running the football well. Sam Darnold is making plays in and out of structure. He's playing great football right now, and this defense is excellent. They're playing such great football right now. They have a point differential of plus 44 on the season and have only given up 67 points so far this year, and they've gone up against a couple of really solid teams. They're 3-1. That week 1 loss was quite ugly, but still, they're handling their business. They're playing clean football. I like where the Seahawks team is at right now. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to win the division because we still got to talk about another team in the division here in just a little bit, but this division is awesome, and I do think the Seahawks have a great chance of doing so. I love what I'm seeing from this team. Jackson Smith-Njigba is blossoming into a star. The offensive line has looked good enough so far this year. Darnold has looked great. Man, defensively, they're great. The only thing that's holding them back is Tariq Woolen, who has not played good so far this year and who will probably get traded. But all in all, I like where the Seahawks team is at right now. Moving to number 9, I got the Kansas City Chiefs. And this might be a little bit of an overreaction, but I liked what I saw in week 4. You know, again, it is against this Ravens defense that stinks, but Mahomes looked excellent in this game. The defense played great football versus a really good Ravens offense. Even if Lamar went out, I think sometime in the 3rd quarter, they still held Lamar in check for most of the game. With Worthy now being in there, it opens up their offense so more. They just look so much more explosive. I still have my concerns for this team because I think they're going to have to be one-dimensional for most of the year just because I don't know what they have in the running back room. Well, I know what they have. It's not good, but they don't have anything great there. But when they do get Rashee Rice back, I do think this will open up their offense to just be so much more multi-dimensional, have more options. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see this team use some of those receivers as almost pseudo running backs just to kind of open up the run game a little bit more. You know, you're going to see this team do a variety of things. I still think they're a great team. As long as they have Mahomes and Andy Reid, you can't doubt this team. So we'll keep an eye on this Chiefs team. They played better in week 4. I think they'll be able to continue to play better as they get healthier. Moving inside our top 8, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I'm not that disappointed with their week 4 performance. I'm definitely not happy with how they played because I think they could have played better, but they made the game closer in the 4th quarter. They got the game within 1 score. Had Baker not thrown that bad pick, they can score points there, whether a field goal or a touchdown, keep the game close, and maybe they have a chance to win it late. Didn't go their way, though. They have to play cleaner football. No blocked kicks or anything like that. They just got to play cleaner football, and I think they can be a competitive team. This team is in a division that's not very good, so they should run away with this division. Once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. I like where this Bucs team is at. Hopefully, they can just finally start to get healthy. Moving to number 7, I have the LA Chargers. The Chargers were way up my power rankings after week 3, but after that week 4 loss to the Giants, where just kind of felt like the Chargers came in flat, I did leave the game feeling a little bit uninspired. I still think this Chargers team is good. They're inside my top 7. They could easily move up my board a couple spots if you're really that mad with me. I just am worried about the offensive line now. No Joe Alt looking like for a couple weeks with that ankle injury. Thankfully, it's not a severe one, but he'll probably miss at least a week or 2. Rashawn Slater's out for the year. I worry about this offensive line. With bad tackles, I worry about Herbert dealing with constant pressure. Can he get the ball down the field? Can they run the football effectively? The good news for this Chargers team is their defense defense is elite, a great overall defense. I think they have enough offensively to be good. So I think this Chargers team is good. I just worry a bit about the injuries. If Alt comes back and he's 100% fine within the next couple weeks, I think this team moves up the board. They got more tests ahead for them. They're in the lead of the division. I still think they're the favorites to win it. But again, it's a tough division. Watch out Kansas City. Watch out Denver Broncos. Chargers are there, but hey, there's some competition there. Moving to number 6, I got the Indianapolis Colts. I told you guys last week in my power rankings, and I think I said it again in my predictions video. If they can keep the game close versus the LA Rams, I will move them up in my power rankings. And that's what I did. If you watch the game, they had 14 points taken off the board because of my guy Adonai Mitchell having that holding penalty on a huge Taylor run, having that fumble at the back of the end zone when you're celebrating. That's 14 points off the board. Had he got those points, they win the game. Or, you know, of course, the game is a different story at that point, but they probably win the game. So they lost the game, but this is one of those few instances where I actually think they're a winner despite them losing. Hence why they moved up several spots. They have proven to me that they can beat high-level competition, and they got a good defense. They got a great offense. Jones made some more mistakes this week, but that's going to happen when you go up against better teams. He'll learn from it, and I like where this Colts team is at right now. Moving to number 5, I got the Green Bay Packers. It's been a tale of two halves for the Packers. Weeks 1 and 2 were super impressive and just great victories versus great NFC teams. But in these past 2 weeks, man, it's been kind of a slippery slope. You had an ugly loss to a bad Browns team. Great defense. It was a trap game. They fell for it. And then against the Dallas Cowboys, the defense couldn't really stop nothing. So unfortunately, I almost feel like we have to bring up the conversation about potential fraud watch here with this Packers team, because occasionally you'll have a team that just jumps out the gates and plays great football. Then they come back down to earth eventually. I'm not saying they're going to be the Saints or anything like that, but I could see this team kind of falling into that motto a little bit. Still though, I have faith in what they have. I have faith in Jordan Love. I like some of the pieces defensively. Of course, Micah Parsons. I still think they have a great offense, great head coach. I think this team does get double-digit wins. I do think they make the playoffs. But in terms of, you know, a potential great season in which they're finished number 1 in my power rankings, it isn't looking as likely right now because they have shown some flaws these past few weeks. Moving to number 4, I got the Detroit Lions. Now you might say, well, Metro, the Lions lost to the Packers in week 1. And well, I'll counter with that saying, well, since then, what team has looked more impressive? Clearly the Lions. The Lions have beat the Ravens that were healthy at that point. They got a huge win versus the Bears, and in this past week, they handled business versus the Browns. So when you compare that to the Packers, who beat the Commanders, but tied to the Cowboys and lost to the Browns, it hasn't been as impressive. So yes, the head-to-head does go to the Packers, but I think the Lions are playing better football, and if those two teams were matched up, I would favor the Detroit Lions in a rematch. The Lions look like themselves from last year. They're playing great offensively. It's creative. They're running the football well. The defense is playing good. DJ Reed will be missing some time, which is a big loss for them, but he will come back at some point. Hutchinson is great. The team is playing great football on both sides. They're not perfect. I still think they have some things they got to figure out in the secondary. Terrion Arnold still got some issues there, but I like where this team is at. I think they're a great team. I think they're one of the best teams, and no doubt in my mind, they are a competitive contender in the NFC. At number 3, I got the LA Rams. I know the Rams lost to the Philadelphia Eagles, and they probably should have lost to the Indianapolis Colts, but when you actually peel back the curtain a little bit here, they probably should have beat Philadelphia, and you got to win versus the Colts. So there's a good chance they could have finished this 1-1 with a win versus Philly and a loss to Indianapolis if things go out differently in both the games, or there's a chance they win both the games if certain things go certain ways. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. They're 1-1 in these two games. They handle business in weeks 1 and 2. I like where this Rams team is at. I just like where they're at. The front four is playing great football. They're good against the run. They're excellent versus the pass. They got a guy in Puka Nacua that's playing like the offensive player of the year right now. Their quarterback's playing good football too. And they got Sean McVay. I think the secondary has played fine. And man, you take out like 2 bad quarters against the Philadelphia Eagles, where the secondary couldn't stop A.J. Brown to save their life, they could have won that game. So there's a chance this team is 4-0. So I'm looking at this Rams team. I think they're in a great spot. I do believe they're going to be making the playoffs. I honestly think they're going to win the division. So great spot to be at if you're a Rams fan. I think they're a very good team. Moving to number 2, I got the Buffalo Bills. Now, I do think the Bills have a great conversation to be number 1. But when you actually look at the Bills' wins, they're not that impressive. You get a win versus Miami. You got to win versus the Jets. You got to win versus the Saints. Their big win, and the reason why they were my number 1 team for a while now, was they beat the Baltimore Ravens. However, the Ravens team has kind of gotten exposed the past few weeks, and in a lot of ways, the Ravens probably should have beat the Bills. So when you kind of just put it in context like that, the record at 4-0 doesn't look impressive. Regardless, though, even with that being said, Josh Allen is playing incredible football. James Cook is playing the best football of his career. They got weapons. They got a great offensive line. Their defense is playing better football right now and will only get better once they get healthy. That's why they're at my number 2. Their schedule will not test them. They do got a couple of tough games down the road. Kansas City. I also think they have Philadelphia down the road. So we won't know a ton about Buffalo until we get those matchups. But until then, they're still going to be easily in my top 3. But at number 1, I got the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I do want to be cautious when I talk about this Eagles team because I have a lot of concerns for this team, mainly on the offensive end. But I want to talk about the positives first. This team is looking good. They're 4-0. They have massive wins versus a handful of really good teams. The Cowboys in week 1. They got a win versus the Bucs last week. They got a win versus the Rams. They've handled their business. They've looked better defensively. And man, they're winning games despite the fact the offense hasn't played particularly well. However, I have some concerns about this offense. They have not been able to get Saquon Barkley going yet. I don't think he's had a single 100-yard game. A.J. Brown is already putting quotes on Twitter because he's not really being utilized that much right now. And let's call a spade a spade. Hurts is playing good game manager football. He's barely pushing the ball down the field. He's throwing for like 110 yards each game. He's running the ball well. He's handing the ball off. He's not costing them the games, but he's also not doing a ton of things to win the team the game. Now, granted, he did so in week 3 versus the Rams in the second half. So we can get more of that Hurts moving forward. Then I think this team is good. This Eagles team is just one of those weird teams where they're not playing great football, but you know they can still win any game because they just execute everything at a high level. And you just got to trust that this offense will go on a rhythm and start playing better football at some point. So this Eagles team is my number 1, but I do got one eye on them just looking at the quarterback and the offensive coordinator, just like, can you guys wake up a little bit? Because the rest of the team is balling, but you guys aren't balling right now. We'll see though. They're 4-0. They're number 1. They're playing great football. You let me know in the comment section below, what do you disagree with and what do you agree with my week 5 updated power ranking. Subscribe and like the video if you did enjoy. Love you guys. Peace.